Hey, g'day. Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your hosts, Matt and Steve, and no Jeff.
No, Jeff. Where's Jeff?
Spontaneously combusted, left with a little green blob on his chair, just a little stain similar to that former drummer from Spinal Tap.
Yeah, Spinal Tap. Musos, I tell you, got to love them.
Oh, I do. They're weirdos. Now, that's not what we're talking about today.
Nothing
Today,
about
we're
music.
talking about some industry trends. We're going to talk about we talk about the industry trends, like what's coming up, where we're heading towards with herbal, botanicals, amino acids, and that sort of stuff, different forms of proteins, all based on a trade show that I've been to recently to see what's coming out and very popular at the moment. I also attended quite a few little educational talks, and I tell you what, I don't know why they let me into some of them, because man, they should have really screened the people that go into it, because I managed to go into some seminars that were talking about the same. Okay, so multiple seminars saying the same thing. We're talking about the environment. Okay, we're talking about trends for the future. We're talking about sustainable or regenerative farming. We're talking about topsoil. All those sort of things. And when we're talking about the food industry, I mean, this is what the food industry is. We've got to work out ways of finding solutions to the existing problems.
Right, so we're talking about things like also global warming and over-farming and mono-farming and weeds and
and Roundup
sprays
and all that sort of
bugs
stuff.
and
Genetically modified, GMO labeling and whether to label, whether not to label. So some really interesting discussions, because I managed to go into some talks which were talking about how, well, the Earth, the world is dying. Okay, the topsoil in particular is dying, and they believe we've got 40 to 60 years of topsoil left. 40 to 60 years. If we continue the way we're going with our existing farming practices, with the topsoil that is used at the moment with agriculture, we have 40 to 60 years left of growing produce for us to eat.
Right. So what do you mean by existing practices? Like what specifically is harming the soil?
So a lot of the problem, well, we talked a lot about the history of how soil was made and how they believe this all occurred, where we talked about bacteria, fungi, and nutrients. Okay, so decomposed plant matter with existing minerals from rocks and the water and that sort of stuff, in conjunction with bacteria and fungi, are capable of decomposing this stuff to create soil.
Yes.
So I talked about a scenario where the first bit of soil might have been made in a puddle on a rock with some seaweed, along with some bacteria, some fungi, and the minerals from the rock, and that created soil. Okay,
Yes.
and then they talk about that process then covering the earth. But also now, so when we've been talking about our soil, definitely the use of things like Roundup has a major problem.
Right.
We've lost the ability to regenerate that soil between crops, and they believe if we continue to go the way we're going, we've got 40 to 60 years.
So just for those people who may not know, a Roundup is a spray that kills plants.
Yeah, the main compound
weeds.
glyphosate. Glyphosate combined with the POA makes it penetrate through to cells and be more dangerous, and that's what Roundup is.
Yeah.
But if it's not Roundup, it could be something else. So it's really important for us to not just jump on a bandwagon to ban an ingredient or a product. We need to understand the concept and create a proper scenario or solutions towards fixing this. So in this scenario, like I said, let me just tell you about two different seminars I went to.
Oh, okay.
One was run by these guys saying the world is dying. We've got 40 to 60 years of soil left. And they presented their solutions on how we're going to save the world.
Good.
And then I had exactly the same topic the next day with totally different solutions.
Right.
Now, what's really cool about it is they had the same emotional marketing campaign. So both sides of the story were educating us of the same problem, okay?
Right.
That farming practices, global warming, environmental impact, all this sort of stuff, what it's doing to our farming. Okay. And they talk in regards to the topsoil predominantly. Yeah. So talking about depletion of the topsoil. So what was really interesting is on the first day, I tell you what's funny, man. I don't know, maybe because I was wearing a suit or something. I felt obligated on that
You
first day.
wore a suit?
Yeah, man. Well, everyone in the foyer was wearing it. And I took one because I got a new one recently.
That's right.
So I thought I'd take one. So I took my suit, and I noticed everyone in the foyer was wearing the suits with the name badges. I was thinking, because I went there years previously, and a lot of the CEOs or the important people of the bigger brands, they'll all wear their suits with their name badges and stuff like that, and hang out and look adulty and stuff like that. So I thought, I'll try I'll get in amongst this. So maybe that's why they let me into this particular lecture.
Yes.
But anyway, I was sitting in this lecture, and they were actually, it was run by suits. Okay.
Right.
So everyone in the crowd, I'm looking around, were all suits. Most of them were men. I don't know if that's a thing, but it is a thing. We typically have men and women.
Yeah, there's typically, even in Vegas.
It's everywhere in the world. You can be whatever you want. I'm just not even going to go down that path. You can be whoever and whatever you want. So basically, in this crowd of suits, and they had some people presenting. So recently in Europe, they've changed the laws in Europe to where you got to label GMO.
Good. Yes.
Yeah. So what's happened is all the Europeans are now moved to America, because in America you don't have to label GMO.
Oh, boo.
Yeah.
What?
So what's happening is I was sitting in a seminar while we had the spin doctors talking about how we're going to infiltrate American market with all the GMO science that they can't use through Europe, because now that they're labeling it, no one wants to eat it.
Right.
Now, this is where I started getting a little bit weird, because I'm sitting there going, yeah, of course, why would we?
Yeah.
And then they've gone through and were insinuating that they have a moral obligation to lie to the world.
Right.
Because what the idiots of the idiot consumers of the world...
That's you, by the way.
Yeah, that's all of us.
Yes.
The idiot consumers of the world don't understand science like these particular scientists, these handful of scientists do.
Right.
These couple of blokes that think they're smarter than the rest of us.
Okay. Well,
So
we're scientists.
We're all idiots, Steve.
Right.
Because what we don't understand is with this topsoil disappearing,
yes,
we've got 40 to 60 years to eat fresh fruit and vegetables left. Then it's gone. At the end of that, what are you going to do, Steve?
I'm going to be dead.
Well, according to these people, you're going to be dead, or you're going to be needing genetically modified foods.
Right.
You're going to need foods that are made in a lab, that are synthesized foods from genetically modified ingredients fed to genetically modified bugs, making genetically modified food, because you can't farm it, remember?
No.
Alternatively, also to those macronutrient fillers, they can
calories.
Spike them with synthetic essential nutrients.
Ugh.
Again, made from genetically modified sugars fed to genetically modified bugs, doing this. So far, we're looking at genetically modified food. Now, one of the things they do with genetically modified food, for example, with plant crops, they don't want the Roundup to kill them. So what they do is they can splice the Roundup. You're a scientist, but I don't know if we need to go too scientific for everyone out there. But basically, there's ways of splicing such compounds as Roundup into the genetic material of the plant that makes that plant resistant to Roundup in the sense that Roundup will no longer kill that plant.
Correct. Means you can spray the entire paddock, the plants and everything, and the weeds that haven't had that genetic will die, but the plant survives. So you can spray the crops with poison.
Yeah. So what they're basically saying, and even through that same technology, we could probably do the same thing for humans.
Wow.
And so, because us idiot consumers out there don't realise this, but just like they've made plants resistant to Roundup, the future is probably us also being made resistant to Roundup. So they're talking about genetically modified food. They're talking about genetically modified plants and animals. They're also talking about genetically modified bugs, potentially genetically modifying humans to be able to tolerate all the genetically modified food.
You're saying genetically modified an awful lot. It's making me a bit scared.
I know.
This is a worry. So just to recap, America, they don't have to label GMO foods.
No.
So they could just bring out some food and say, oh, yes, it's they call it something else, could they?
Yeah. Well, what's the funny thing is, so we had a bit of this led into a brainstorming workshop around creative ways of marketing genetically modified food. Yeah, you're right. I've got to stop saying genetically modified. What I'm going to start saying is fermented food.
That's what I was trying to get.
I know, because these buggers.
Another way of calling it.
One of the solutions they come across is say, well, okay, think about this. Like, seriously, just forget the GM bit, and forget the GMO aspect of it. What happens when we give a bug a sugar and they make something, Steve? What's that process
It's called fermentation.
Fermentation. So if I don't have to label GMO sugar, I don't have to label a GMO bug to label a GMO synthetic ingredient.
Yes.
What is it then? I've just got a fermented product.
And you see, fermentation has, like, if you ferment soy, you got miso, and that's healthy for you. Ferment, cabbage, you get sauerkraut. So fermentation is actually, in the mind of the consumers, a healthy thing.
Well, exactly. And it is branded as a health food. It's labelled as a health food, and people buy it as a health food.
So they
Now,
buy
if they
GMO food as a health food.
Exactly. Now, what's really worrying about this, so I was sitting in this seminar, and this is a bit where I started getting offended because I'm a consumer.
You are.
I don't understand the rest of the people in the room. Obviously, they are too. Like they're buying what do they eat? Like, anyway, because what they're basically saying is the typical consumer, they don't understand the severity of this soil running out. They don't understand that we're all about to die. We're about to move to insects, whether we like it or not. In 50 years, we'll be using insects as our major source of nutrients because we can't grow enough for everyone.
Right.
Coincidentally, I'll just mention this now in case I forget later. They didn't mention that 40% of the food that we make is wasted.
Yeah.
So they didn't mention that we're going to have because they're talking about the population going out to 9 billion or something like that by 2050, and that's what we've got to plan for. So what are we now? 7 and a bit?
Just over 7 billion.
Yeah. So we're just over 7 billion now. Like 40% of our food's wasted. Our population might go up 10 or 20%. We've already got the food.
We've got the food for that already.
So anyway, so they're talking about this food crisis that we're going to have and the need for genetically modifying, creating synthetics, reinventing food, making it out of insects, and the whole time lying to the consumer because if they're honest, they won't buy it.
Right.
Because they're idiots.
They are.
And what they're basically saying is that, and funny, some of the quotes were disgusting. One of the quotes was, what did he say? Now, the consumers are idiots. They have a moral obligation to lie to them, like I said. And they gave some examples of how when a consumer eats a GMO product and they don't die instantly, because that's what they think, they're going to eat GMO and explode. This is what these guys are saying, not me. But they're saying the idiot consumers, if you lie to them and they go and eat these foods, they keep coming back for more.
Right. Like cigarettes.
And that was their self-fulfilling prophecy, that we're doing the right thing because these people are idiots. If we told them what it was, they wouldn't buy it. But when we don't tell them what it is, they do buy it. And when they don't die straight away, those idiots keep coming back for more and more.
Yeah.
They gave some examples of genetically modified foods they're using these health food claims for genetically modified food in America now. They showed some pictures of apples, pre-sliced apples that don't go brown. And they're saying, so they said, what an amazing innovation this was. We managed to remove that horrible stuff that goes brown when you slice them, that stuff that nobody wants. And I'm sitting there thinking, what, the pectin? Like, that's the good stuff.
Good stuff for your gut.
Yeah, that's the stuff that helps our gut. And this is what we talk about with our modbiotics being stripped from a diet. So when we talk about losing all the polyphenols and tannins and modbiotic compounds, that's what we're talking about exactly. These things that make a food. The things that make a food change colour or have a flavour or get bitterness when it's overripe or whatever, you know what I mean? So these are the compounds that they're gradually removing from our food anyway as part of this genetic. Now, how is having sliced apples that don't go brown fixing the world's food shortage?
It's bizarre.
It's not. It's contributing to an environmental catastrophe with more bloody plastic packaging.
Yes.
If only fruit was delivered in a convenient package that you could hold
something
without
colourful.
getting juice down your arm, like
maybe
a skin.
Green or yes, that's right.
Like these guys are taking it off the skin and slicing it and putting it in a plastic bag and then concerned that it's going brown because it's been pre-sliced. It's like, just give them an apple.
Bloody apple.
It's crazy, hey? So this is the sort of thing. So these guys, now I don't know, a lot of our listeners out there may or may not be religious. It's irrelevant for my discussion right now because I'm not coming to you from a preaching angle.
You haven't got the white collar thing?
No, man, but these there were some things that these guys were saying that I just want people to understand what's happening because these guys were so arrogant. They honestly thought they were so much smarter and everyone else was idiots. And like that, the arguments or the discussions that they were having, I just could not. Man. Anyway, I sat through it because it was just like, oh my gosh, I have to be here. Like one of us idiot consumers has to be here to spread the word of what I've just witnessed.
Well, you're going to spread the word. You're talking religion. What were they talking about?
Oh man! So what they were basically doing. So they were arguing about natural. They say, is GMO natural? Yeah. They were arguing, yes, GMO is natural.
So what does the M stand for in GMO?
Man, Steve.
Genetically modified. So it's modified.
All right, so God,
yes,
created man.
right? That's the Christian God, or the
we don't. No, well, I didn't even think to ask those questions.
Okay.
So
it's about 2000.
The bloke that was there was saying that his God created man along the same lines of the same time or days that they did the animals.
Day 4, I think.
So his God created man as well as created all the animals and the plants and everything on the earth. God has given men everything he needs to sustain, maintain life and self-perpetuate what God started. They've been given them the ideas, they've been given the tools and the brains and the innovation. Therefore, anything that comes from man is natural. Wow. So man-made is natural. And they've got this belief in the back of the head that they are not only doing the right thing for the environment, saving the world. And there's people out there be listening to this podcast going, exactly right. That's what they're doing, Matt. These guys are saving the world through genetically modified and through this sort of stuff. All you weird hippies are idiots. These guys are doing the hard things that need to be done. And there is a school of thought that believes that. I know quite a few people that are involved in, genetically science associated with food security. They get all the grants that we don't get to make high yield wheat and that sort of rubbish. So these guys were basically saying that not only is it natural because it's man-made, but it's pretty much an act of God. And this is God's plan to actually give these men everything they need to invent these things to fix the food security. So these guys are coming from an angle where they believe what they're doing is right. Probably just like Hitler believed what he was doing was right to create
Mussolini
a superior rice
and so did Pol Pot.
Superior rice. Here I am stuck in food mode. He's going, I got to make the superior rice. The white rice.
That was Pol Pot.
Rice.
That was a Chinese dictator. He wanted the right rice.
Did you say right rice?
The right rice, not white rice. The right rice.
We've offended in the last minute.
Oh, probably had a dozen.
But the big point is, these guys were basically saying, and this is why I think they feel it's okay to do the emotional marketing to you or to lie to you. Because they genuinely believe you're an idiot and they're doing what's right for you. The problem is I don't think that's true.
Really?
In the sense that I don't think anyone knows what's best for everyone. I don't think anyone knows everything, and I don't think anyone really knows enough to have that ability to make decisions for others.
Right. So just to recap, they say that to quote Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. On day 4, I think it was, someone's going to correct me, he created man, and therefore he created man and everything on earth. Therefore, everything is natural, genetically modified. Everything is perfectly natural. Yeah,
exactly. Because anything that comes from man is natural because he made it. That's his God plan. He wouldn't have given the innovation and these ideas and the tools to do it if it wasn't the right thing to do.
Wow.
And that's just the way that this is kind of...
It's a long bow, isn't it?
And then basically we sit down for a workshop with a lawyer that tells us creative ways of labelling genetically modified things to generate sales and not go to jail.
Wow.
So that's when they're talking about these examples of fermented food. Technically, if they were to come back to you and have a go, you could argue that it was a fermented food and maybe get some extension in your time or whatever. I don't know what the...
Horrifying, isn't it?
But anyway, so... and part of that, man, just keep an eye out for this. This thing looks scary. I might actually get shot too by this. So if you're watching this video, it might be because I'm dead. But, man, have a look at this stuff called CRISPR. Or look out for it. Just keep your eye out for CRISPR technology.
So it's about crisping potatoes? Or
it sounds nice. And
it sounds good.
It's a very strange thing. From my understanding of it is it's talking about... they're using artificial intelligence in the sense that they're using they're using computer technology to filter through databases of genomes from humans and from microbiome, combining that with potential botanical extracts and plants to use a computer mathematical equation to generate synthetic compounds out of plants that fit with our genetic material.
Right.
Blah, blah. It's a computer that will tell us how to splice genetic material from microbiome with plants and our humans to actually solve problems like blood pressure or cancer or something like that. But it's a way of, and what they do is they do a preliminary screening of all these plant materials to work out ways of combining all these different genetic materials to do things. But it's marketed like a screening tool to look for potential plant extracts that you could make drugs out of.
Yeah,
but which makes sense. And that's what they market it for. It's like, so we're going to screen all these things, and we've got this big database of genes that we're going to screen these plants with these genes to see what potentially we could make drugs out of.
Wow.
But also it links in all of the potential genetically modification and all that sort of stuff. And they can go through and say, not only would this plant maybe be a good fit for this, but if we modify it with this, it'll be better. And so there's some interesting opportunities for that power or technology to be used for evil.
Geez, that's scary, isn't it?
Not all scary, because this is a cool thing.
Yes.
So I walked out of that. I took my suit off.
Yes.
I rolled my sleeves up and untucked my shirt.
Good.
And I went, well, my hair was already messy. But then I went straight back down into the thing, pretending to be a human again.
Right.
So, I put my suit away and never put it back on.
I
just realised I am not those people. So
No.
there's a part of the industry where these CEOs for someone else's company that's trying to get some profit share back. I don't understand what their motives are, Steve.
very
Fear
weird.
and greed, typically,
Yeah.
and delusions of arrogance and prophecy. They're prophets. Is that what you're trying to say?
Profits.
Yeah. No, you're talking prophet with an F.
Yes.
I'm thinking the other prophet where these guys go and stand on a hill and speak for us and make decisions on our behalf.
That's it.
That's what they're acting like.
They're acting like prophets. They are acting like prophets.
So anyway, the next day,
yes.
I went and sat in a room with some lovely ladies, which is always a much better idea. I feel much better in a room full of lovely ladies than a room full of blokes with suits.
Okay.
The three ladies up the front, one of them was this most lovely lady, Leah I shouldn't say that. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Fuck, I can't even speak. Leah, we call her. And she's the head of Mummovation and Digital Mums. I recommend anyone out there that wants to get involved and get a bit more information, what she does through her group, go and hit her up to join her groups and tell her, say good day from ATP in Australia, because I want this lady to be my new friend because she's really cool. She works with all these women to kind of does these polls and asks them questions like, hey, what do you want to know? What do you want to see on your labels? What do you want to push for? She's the one that gets and pushes for GMO labelling in America, for example. She's also pushing for regulations around glyphosates and that sort of stuff. So she came up with a group of other ladies that were talking about exactly the same intro. The world is dying. We've got 40 to 60 years of topsoil left. If there's a couple of small changes we can make now that will directly extend that out to 100. So it's already, you're just sitting there going, okay, so we can double the length of time we got just by making a couple of small changes, which I will talk to you about in a sec, because I want to push for this as well. So they went through and said, the topsoil, we're running out of topsoil. The reason why we're running out of topsoil, mentioned earlier, bacteria and fungi, heavily involved in the breakdown process of all the other plant matter to make soil, and the regular use of glyphosates and Roundups and that sort of stuff is killing that. So we're interrupting with the whole soil regeneration process by disturbing the microbiome of the dirt, and losing the ability to decompose things properly and generate certain nutrients. So that makes sense, hey?
It does make sense.
So there's a large percentage of the nutrients that go into our plants that are directly derived from the microbiome of the soil. There's a large percentage of certain aspects of the soil that cannot be digested and converted into the things that we need in our soil without microbes.
Absolutely.
And we have this constant need for sterilising the soil.
Yeah.
And so they talked about ways of regenerating the soil just through normal farming practices and that sort of stuff to help to regenerate the soil. They also talked a lot about glyphosate residues and that sort of stuff in the plants and avoiding genetically modified strains that result in the use of more chemicals.
Yeah.
Because most of the GMO stuff, Steve, they're not genetically modifying it so we get more nutrients out of it.
No.
They're not even necessarily genetically modifying these things for extended shelf life or preservation of nutrients over a longer period of time or anything like that. They're doing it to make it resistant to Roundup.
Yeah, of course.
So they can sell chemicals with it.
Well, also because you can then the farmer just drives on. Everyone's seen it. If you've been on farms, big tractors with big sprayers covering the whole crops.
Yep.
They're not walking around there with little sprayer going spray like we might do in the backyard.
Yeah.
This is the whole plant. So.
Yeah, and the big problem with here is they do it too often and they do it at the wrong times. When they're talking about the glyphosate residue in the plants, they traced back a massive problem to the amount of Roundup that we've got in our finished products, our cereals and grains in particular. So things that are based on wheat, soys, those cereals and grains are the worst.
Corn
and
too.
they even did a study where they found, even the Ben and Jerry's ice creams, where they got in trouble, found the pesticide residues.
Yes.
The highest amount of pesticide residues was found in the cookie ones. again, because it's got the flours. So they got cookie dough ones.
Yeah.
Those cookie dough ones, and any of the ones that had broken bickies in them, they actually had the higher levels of glyphosate residue. So that's what I think, and some of it might have been coming from the dairy, but a lot of it was also coming from the other ingredients used.
Wow.
And they found the cereals and grains are the worst. On cereals and grains in particular, they do a process using glyphosate called desiccation.
Desiccation in chemistry is drying something.
Is it really? Yeah. So in these cases, what
like
they
you've
do...
heard of desiccant?
Yeah.
Product,
We put it in our things full of silicon and clay to suck up the moisture.
Yeah.
Well, in the instance of this, so that's a sneaky thing too, because even you see these words, like a word like desiccation, you think, oh, okay, whatever. But what that process in this instance is it's a final spraying of Roundup just prior to harvest.
Right.
So what they do is just prior to, like for example, I grew up in sugarcane country.
Yes.
Prior to harvest, they used to burn it. Okay, so they just burn the cane, that kill off all the weeds, it'd take a lot of the moisture out, concentrate the sugar, improve the yield, that sort of stuff. But
Kill
the burning...
snakes.
Yeah, exactly. Without the need for chemicals. And then they didn't get the chemicals in the finished product. But that burning was bad for the environment, the carbon in the air. So they've stopped the burning and they started spraying.
Right.
So the spraying just prior to harvest leaves an abundance of glyphosate on the product.
Of course it would.
By eliminating the desiccation process,
Yeah.
they can significantly reduce the amount of Roundup and glyphosate through the food chain.
Right.
They can also significantly reduce the amount of glyphosate and Roundup that's residually left in the soil prior to the next crop, because all of that sort of stuff then is recently covered and then ploughed back through the soil before the next crop goes on. So by simple step of removing this, banning desiccation.
Yes.
And this is one of the things that the Mumovation digital mums people are pushing for, trying to get rid of desiccation, because this can significantly remove the amount of glyphosate that's in our food chain that's contributing to the cancer, to the gut problems, and all these behavioural problems and everything we got. And then they even said that there's other techniques currently available that people don't use. So there's a thing called foam stream, which is like a... It's
foam
like a
stream.
Foam steam. I mean, I think so. It's a steam. So they kill the weeds with steam.
Steam.
So they make
It's
like
water.
a foam steam that sits on covers the ground and kills them all the weeds off.
Sounds
and
good.
then the byproduct of that is water and the dead weeds, which is
It's
great
good for the soil.
Yeah, exactly. Another one was root wave technology, which was this
Root wave.
Yeah, so they electrocute the roots. So they basically go through and
Shocking.
Yeah, man, they do
Jeez.
it cool. It's imagine if Tesla had his way.
Tesla.
Imagine if Tesla had his way and he made the whole crust of the earth an electromagnetic
apart
thing
from
where we can powerful enough to charge our phone while we're walking around
Absolutely.
and light bulbs and stuff. We'd be all dead, wouldn't we,
We'd
Steve?
be dead, but it's a good idea. But it would kill us. But apart from that, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think
It's
and
convenient.
Kill off the roots too. Mate. Yeah, so this foam steam and this root wave technology. There are things already we can do to get rid of the desiccation. The rest of the time is trying to work on soil regeneration by working with farmers to actually focus on making quality food, not just quantity, especially if 40% of the stuff they make is wasted anyway.
Yeah.
Make good stuff. We're also looking at when you do soil properly, you can actually make foods with nutrients in it. And when those foods are grown properly and tested and shown to be full of nutrients, then you don't need to spike them with synthetics.
Spiking with synthetics. So what do you mean? They get the food and then they get synthetic vitamins, and you mean they add that to the food?
Yeah.
Right.
Which is fine if they're honest about it. I mean, if that's the best you can do, well, that's the best you can do. Because we work with some farmers and get material standardised. So we get the material, we powder it, and then test it.
So we don't add synthetics back in?
No. No, because
be clear.
in nature you get like 9 different forms of folate, or 8 different forms of B6, and there's all these different things. So in nature you get all of those different forms.
Yes.
So what you don't get in nature is things like pyridoxine hydrochloride, or thiamine hydrochloride, or you do get 5-MTHF, but you don't get calcium 5-MTHF and that sort of stuff. So what you got to realize. So when we get a food, we test the food for the levels of vitamins, and then we just mix them together.
Yeah.
What a lot of other people do is they kind of do this. What bugs me, like I said, when people aren't transparent. And what really, really irks me is when people use an emotional argument to get an attention and then do the old bait and switch. You know, like that magician, here, look at my hand over here while I do something over here. Because what bugs me is like, I went to that first day's seminar and that was evil. That bugs me. But they were like openly evil.
Yes.
So if I didn't like what I was hearing, I didn't need to do that.
Correct.
When people go through and talk an emotional argument about one side, but then do the old bait and switch and sell you something else, it bugs me because you can get plant material, you can get something off a farm, and you can spike it with a synthetic.
Yeah.
And if you tell people that I'm going to give you plant material that's got lots of good nutrients, lots of good antioxidants, it's got all the cofactors, got lots of different forms of those vitamins, but I'm also going to add a bit of synthetic vitamin to standardise it to make sure you know what you're going to get.
Yeah, so you can make
And if you
claim.
can say that, that's cool.
If you want to do
But
it.
what a lot of people are doing is actually trying to pretend that these vitamins are part of the food. For example, they'll say beta carotene with carrot.
Yeah,
or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example.
Yeah.
Although a classic one is you'll see pyridoxine hydrochloride, and then it'll say from rice or
Yes.
something like that. And then you go, well, pyridoxine hydrochloride, that's pyridoxine, that's a synthetic compound.
vitamin.
And so then what you realise they're doing is getting some plant material and then spiking it with synthetic. So they're buying from those guys from that first day, those guys that were making genetically synthetic vitamins from genetically modified sugar, genetically modified yeast, that are contributing to the destruction of the world and the soil and perpetuating that for their own profit and gain. Some of these companies are buying their vitamins and adding it to their plant powders they're getting from the farm. So they're still supporting that other dodgy industry, but they're talking this a big emotional game about how they're going to save the world, how they're going to fix the soil, how they're working directly with the farmers. But they obviously have no respect for those farmers or no pride in what those farmers are making, not even enough to test those foods to see if they're a naturally sourced good source of those vitamins.
Yeah, I see what you
because if those farmers were doing their good job and they're making good soil and they're contributing to this stuff and providing material such as carrot powder, then that carrot powder should be able to be tested. And the carotenoid levels in that carrot powder should be measurable and they can be used instead of a synthetic beta-carotene. So what's a trend at the moment is people are buying greens powders or they're using like plant excipients, like rice excipients, and claiming those things to be foods full of vitamins. But they're not. They're just putting synthetic vitamins in plant powder. So they're still supporting the whole GMO, chemically synthesized fake food and not right. It just does not follow the laws of nature.
Yes.
While they're talking up a big emotional game about fixing the soil and fixing the environment and sticking the carbon in the dirt instead of the sky, and like they talk all this sort of stuff and they get people all excited. They go and do these campaigns about banning Roundup and talking about their farms don't use Roundup and their farms use blockchain. Oh, don't start me on blockchain. Blockchain.
I'm going to start. What is blockchain? Just quickly.
Blockchain is a new thing that you're probably going to start to see everywhere. So how everyone wants to see clean labels and transparency? Yes. Through blockchain, you can get pockets of data that gets, like, for example, the farmers that are making certain foods going to certain factories. So they'll go through and you can get details of the actual farmers. So through blockchain, you get these pockets of data that allows you to trace where your finished product is.
Right.
The theory is that if I get a pizza with an egg on the top, I can tell which chicken laid that egg and where it was. The reality is not that case because with multiple, might be 1 million chicken farmers delivering to one processing plant.
Right.
That carton of eggs might come from 12 different farmers.
Yes, because
which each of them have 1,000 different chickens. So like the reality of it is if you're working straight from farmer to fork, maybe you could actually do it. But if you're doing anything processed that involves steps, it's just an illusion of transparency that people get caught into a rabbit warren and they'll never get out. And then they think, oh man, I know the answer's in here somewhere, but I just don't have the time to work it out.
Wow. So
I don't think it's going to work myself, but a lot of people who do it, a lot of people will be into it because they'll think that it's good marketing, and then people will realise that it's actually not.
So just to clarify, we've got a GMO, which of course is genetically modified food, and in America you don't have to label as GMO, and in European you do. Now the $1 million question is, if it is, let's assume for 1 second that it's perfectly healthy for you, no problems at all. Why wouldn't you label that? Yeah,
exactly. Because the idiots, Steve, think it's bad for them, and they won't buy it. So those
the idiots,
labels,
you mean the
consumer. Well, according to these guys, I'm not saying it. But these guys, these guys that don't want to label GMO because they're not proud of it. They feel it should be.
Why wouldn't you be proud of it?
Oh, they know the truth, Steve. Probably, but no, their thinking is that if they label it, the market research shows that if it's labelled, people won't buy it. So for that reason, they don't want to have to label it.
They don't want to educate people.
So they don't, exactly. Why wouldn't you go and educate people that what you're doing is right? If it's right, and I mean, if you're a genius created by God and believe that this is all there and all these other people you're doing it to save, then they will believe you.
Yes. If there's evidence.
If whatever made you convinced that this was the right thing to do, you present that evidence to other people, intelligent people or not even as intelligent as you, with enough education, you should be able to explain it to them.
Absolutely.
And they should be obviously come up with the same solution.
Or publish studies. Or,
if their intuition or their gut or their whatever it gets in the way and they don't buy it, then you're doing them a disservice. That's what they honestly believe.
It's just scary,
They honestly believe they're so much smarter than the rest of us that they should have authority to lie to us.
So we're talking about, and I don't want to get political here, but communism is the idea that the government knows better for the people than what the people know themselves.
Yep.
Okay, that's communism, basically. And in Eastern Germany, pre-1989, of course, they basically said, we are going to run the people because we know what's best. Everywhere else is evil on this. And, years ago I dated an East German girl, so I know I've been to East Germany. Yeah. And this was the line told to them, and they were brought up this way. And it was, so they're basically like, I don't want to, bring communism to food, but it sounds like that these people know better than the consumers. Yeah. So the consumers need to be lied to, like the East Germans were. To say, no, the West Germans are evil. They'll, kill you and all this sort of stuff. So, okay, so we're going to take away your decisions, and that's the way it's looking. That's communism.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
What's worse about this isn't just one country. These people are trying to control the food security for the world, and they lobby to governments to get their agenda across, and then the government decides what you get. Yeah. So you've got one group of people manipulating like the whole EU, but it backfired on them. It didn't quite work because they're smarter.
Because of Brexit.
Yeah.
The people in England wanted out of Brexit. Yeah. They wanted out of Europe.
Yeah. So these guys here, they kicked out of Europe. Well, they're not kicked out of Europe. They're running out of Europe because Europe's making them label what they're doing. Yeah. They're going over to America going, well, here's our land of opportunity. Yes. We're going to go and lie to all these guys for as long as possible.
So when the French built the...
and lying to them, Steve. They're saying it's fermented bloody food when it's a genetically modified bug feeding on sugar, pooping out a chemical that they want. It's designer drugs using genetically modified everything.
Scary.
And that they're trying to trick us into thinking it's food. And like you're saying, if they genuinely believed what they're doing was right,
genuinely,
if their gut instincts weren't saying, man, geez, there's a reason why you're not sleeping at night. If their gut instincts were, on board with this, they would be labelling GMO like you would not believe, and they'd be so proud of it, and they'd be saying, this is how smart we are.
So this reminds me of when the French gave the Statue of Liberty to the Americans. Yeah. Where this is a liberty, this is the home, except it sounds like these Europeans have moved into America because they've seen a hole in the market saying you don't have to label this stuff. Yeah. Even, everyone hates this stuff. Yeah. So because you don't have to label it, we're going to move in here. We're going to lie to the people. Yep. And we are going to, because you're too stupid. Yeah. So we're going to lie to you. Yeah. You're too dumb, people. Yeah. Everyone listening, I'm not saying that, but don't write letters to me. You're too dumb, so we're not going to label it. And that's horrendous. Yeah. That's communism.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's what they're doing. So then on the other side of it, we got these people with a great agenda. They're really pushing it. We got these mums groups teaming up with these companies, but unfortunately, a lot of the products, a lot of them aren't going to that next degree that we go to actually make foods from farms tested to show they're full of nutrients. They're just still doing the fortifying of foods with synthetics. Yes. Still compensating for the fact that farmers are inferior. It's like, where's your self-esteem? Come on, test your food, man. I guarantee you it's going to be full of... If you're making it the way you say, that stuff will be awesome, full of nutrients. Food. Maybe you need to eat more, or maybe you need to dose more than a capsule. But you know what I mean? This is a very important thing. And what I want people to do is look for the product and ask the question. Go back to these people, and they're talking a big game about supporting farmers and soil. Ask the question, do you just have synthetics added to some greens powder.
Yeah.
And it'll read the label. Yeah.
And another suspect thing that people got to be aware of is when they see a greens powder with synthetics in it, the synthetics have got 10, 50, 100, all these rounded perfect numbers. It's like, no,
and
mate.
they'll always have like a hydrochloride on it.
Yeah, HCl.
HCl after it. Or what's another example of known?
They have oxides. They have
like a phosphate, pyridoxal phosphates and that sort of stuff instead of the other pyridoxal compounds.
Yeah, exactly. It's all, you can tell a synthetic, it's got the numbers that are really perfectly rounded.
But I tell you what, man, they're all evil on this sense because... Like you have a look at folate, for example.
Folate,
They've got new laws with folate labelling now called dietary folate equivalent, or DFE.
Yeah.
So what it is folic acid is extremely stable because it's a synthetic, it's a hydroxy, it's already been destroyed.
Yeah, it's oxidized.
So it's folates that's been oxidized and damaged into its final form.
Yeah, like rust is stable.
Yeah. Rust is very stable. So that's what folic acid, that's a classic example. So then when we take folic acid, we got to recreate it back into our body, into the forms that our body uses.
We have genes for that,
Such things as, we're not going to talk about that. Such things as the, so for example, we convert folic acid back into an active thing called 5-MTHF, 5-methylene tetrahydrofolate. And it's 5-methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. Thank you very much, Steve.
That's the one.
Not motherfucker. So what you'll find is... what the fuck was I talking about? So with this dietary folate equivalent,
yes,
if I use the natural forms of folate that's found in foods, they aren't as stable as folic acid because they can be rusted or they can be oxidized and turned into folic acid.
Yeah.
So a natural folate, according to the FDAs and that sort of stuff, is not as effective as not as stable as folic acid, and therefore, and the bioavailability is not the same. Therefore, it's not as good as folic acid. Even though once you absorb that folic acid, your body's got to convert it back.
Yeah.
So if I label folic acid as a synthetic, if I put folic acid into my product, like for example, if I put 1 milligram of folic acid, I can label 1 milligram of folic acid as 1 milligram dietary folate equivalent.
Sure.
If I use natural folates, then I can only get 0.6. So, for example, if I put in my 1 milligram of dietary folates, natural folates, I'm only allowed to label 0.6.
0.6 milligrams.
0.6 milligram dietary folate equivalent, even though I'm giving dietary folates.
Yes.
So folic acid is not a dietary folate.
No.
But it actually, you can use less of that and label more of that.
So,
and you can label folic acid, which is not found in the diet, as dietary folate equivalent. And I am forced to label my dietary folate exactly the same as their non-dietary folate, but they get to use less and claim more.
I hope you're following this out here.
It's complicated.
It is. So basically, and I'll cut a long story short, is if you use a synthetic non-active form, it's counted as more active according to the FDA.
Yeah.
Right.
Not only is it cheaper, nastier,
stable,
more stable,
oxidized.
And that's why they fortify foods with it too.
Yeah.
And that's why it's added to fortified food. So when I'm talking about these poor farming practices has led to our nutritional deficiencies in food. Poor farming practices, these GMO strategies and consumer demand has led to reduction of polyphenols and modbiotics and all that sort of stuff. They're fortifying our foods with the vitamins. No one's fortifying our foods back with polyphenols because they go brown when you slice it and that sort of stuff. So they're fortifying our food. So what these other companies are doing, they're talking about farming, they're talking about soils, they're talking about saving the world through soil, saving the world through micronutrients and blah, blah, blah. But then they still go through and fortify their foods with synthetics. So just keep an eye out for that because don't fall for the because I saw a massive amount of that. So the whole world wants clean labels. They want transparency. They want to save the world. We want to do the right thing for the environment. Environmentally sustainable is not good enough when we're finding out that we've got 40 to 60 years of topsoil left. We need environmental regenerative.
Right. So what's the difference between that?
Oh, I don't know. But no one's really doing the regenerative bit. The big point is like we've run a whole industry where through the 80s and 90s, we honestly thought the future of us was eating space food sticks and consuming Tetra Pak proteins and designer foods that way and that sort of stuff, to the point that we're now coming into this era where we're going, man, we just want normal fruit and vegetable like our parents had.
Yes.
So the world is changing significantly, but not to the way they thought.
I still remember the McDonald's in those styrofoam hydrofluorocarbon made things, and we thought that was great because it kept it warm and it was sterile, and what's wrong with this apart from ozone death? But so we've gone on. We're slowly getting back to what reality is and what we've eaten for millions of years.
Yeah, starting to realise that following the laws of nature makes sense. But so everyone's looking for that at the moment. The consumer demand, all the market research has shown that's what people want, all the way from the baby boomers through the millennials. There's a lot of interesting stuff. But so what you saw is all the trends of the new products. That's what they're doing. Well, that's what they're trying or pretending to do.
Yes.
And this is it's disgusting actually, because you go through and so like the big trend, of course, at the moment is plant protein. So
plant protein.
I'm roaming around trying to find a plant protein that's not chalky and horrible to taste and that sort of stuff. Like I keep saying, I like the hemp, I like the rice. There's a couple of really good ones that are coming through. Never been a big fan of the pea, never been a big fan of the soy, blah, blah, blah. But as I'm going through, I'm going, so cool, tell me your story. Tell me how you're environmentally regenerative.
Yes.
And these people are like, oh, no, we're still destructive. So because we've gone through an era of destroying the environment just because we can, because there was a lot of the earth.
Yeah, so unlimited.
Exactly. I think, and I still remember, we still got 50 years of coal left, just keep going. But I just, so we've gone through an era of destroying things, and then we've gone through an era of saying, well, we need to be environmentally sustainable. We can't keep destroying everything. But that doesn't work. Now we're talking about environmentally regenerative. A good company is a company to follow, is one that's actually working towards improving the quality of the farmers that they're working with, improving their life, improving their soil, therefore improving their produce. So we can use less of that material with a higher nutrient density, lower macronutrient energy.
Yep.
And higher micronutrient. And this is, again, we were talking before about global warming. So they talk about the farming and global warming, but actually the farming speeds up with global warming, doesn't it, Steve?
CO2 is plant food. Yeah, just about 0.04% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide, and global warming is the burning of, say, fossil fuels, and we'll simplify that. And of course, a lot of it's volcanic activity. About 97%, I think, is volcanic CO2. It's released naturally all the time. And the CO2 is plant food, because when you add CO2 to H2O, it forms glucose, the basic building blocks of carbohydrates, which are found in plants. So that's your bit of, it's called photosynthesis. So it's made in the presence of light. Yeah. And I know we've talked a lot about.
So the more carbon you got in the atmosphere and the more heat and sun or whatever CO2, it is, the faster plants grow.
Correct.
The end result of that is you get an abundance of food, macronutrients though, not micro.
No.
So you actually grow big, hollow, empty stuff. We always talk about the shittiest seasons for growing produce the best products because you get less macronutrients, more micronutrients.
Well, you also get more cerulins and polyphenols and
other,
absolutely.
those compounds to protect the plant from disease while it's weak.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those sort of cool things. But so with global warming, we're actually getting nutrient deficiencies. Yeah. So then these people are fortifying it again with micronutrients. We still got to work with the soil and rebuild it, which is why it's so important to work with farmers that actually measure their food to confirm that they're getting the nutrients in the food, confirming that their soil is of good quality.
Yep.
And then they work with a campaign to actually make that better and better each season, not worse and worse, to a point where they're stuck buying chemicals and buying new seeds every season.
Absolutely.
And trying to get a contract.
Well, right now in the evolution of the Earth of 4.54 billion years old, we're actually in a period of low CO2 in the atmosphere, believe it or not, historically. And so when we went through periods where there was no grass on the planet, there was a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere. And a lot of it's been sucked out. So now, we're coming out of a period of low CO2.
Yep.
From a history point of view, not from decades, but from millions of years.
We're talking about ice age and hot age.
Yeah, those sorts of things.
Is it called hot age?
A hot age? No, they just call it.
Just not the ice age.
Yeah, not the ice age. But there's only ice ages, and there's one coming in about 15,000 years, I reckon.
So what are they talking about? Hang on. This is going to bug me now.
What?
So they got an ice age, but they don't have the hot bits in between?
Oh, no. The globe heats up and cools down all the time. We're in a relatively cool period as far as...
It's like a respirator to breathe in and out.
Yeah. Well, 65 million years ago when
I
was around. I was only a kid around then.
Yeah.
But there was these big dinosaurs that roamed the earth, and that was very much warmer then. And they were reptiles because they were warm-blooded. Well, warm-blooded. They had to get heated from the atmosphere. Of course, they died out due to this lovely asteroid that knocked them out. And so basically, ever since then, the little mammals have taken over, and the globe has become warmer, and reptiles have gone down on the food chain. Well, down on the food chain, but they've gone down in numbers dramatically.
Yeah, right.
Because we're in a period of global cooling.
Yeah,
you know, about 20,000 years ago, we had another ice age.
Because used to have the rainforest in Antarctica and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. The globe was a lot warmer many years ago.
Yeah.
And sea levels have changed dramatically. It's a very dynamic system. And
so in the meantime, we're trying to live on this planet and maintain food with nutrients. And this is one of the catches when they get into the environmental debate and trying to work out how to do it. So the big thing is it's all cool, and I love the discussion and the dialogue, and I love that motion and the motivation and that particular driving of that concern. Let's think about the farmers. Let's think about where our food comes from. Let's think about making stuff properly. Think about recycling our soils and regenerating our soils and that. But don't sell a shitty product in as a part of a campaign to do that.
No.
So just be aware of that, because in the industry trends that I saw, there is a lot of, like I was saying, there's plant proteins just made using weird-ass hexane solvents, or just, aluminium vats with solvents. And you look at this stuff and it's genetically modified. And so there's a lot of weird stuff. Like I showed you some photos of those algae that were grown. They show the satellite photos where these algae are grown underneath airports and in main estuary systems of capital cities. It's just like... so just be aware that a lot of people are going to push this agenda moving into the future of plant-based everything. Find out how these plants are made, because if these companies are not supporting an environmental regenerative process, and they're going to continue to work towards the destruction of the topsoil to replace it with lab food and insects and genetically modified stuff. That's not the future I want to be eating.
No, I don't want to be eating.
I want nice gourmet food and work with the farmers.
I'm old, so I'm going to die sooner than all this happens, but I still want it to be left, but because we've got about 4 billion years of Earth life left until the sun swallows us. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
Well, I'm talking about us will be dead.
Yeah.
Like, we'll destroy the soil, we'll starve off, and the Earth will be fine.
Yeah, the Earth will be fine.
It'll use us to regenerate the soil. So some of the trends that were coming out is a lot of people, so everything's moving towards food format and away from pills.
Good.
There's a lot of category blending that's coming. Like, for example, now the new thing for cosmetic for the first time in the history is eating it. Like, for everything now, skin, you got to eat it. Like, you have your antioxidants, and you got to have your collagens. When they all work internally, you can't regenerate your skin unless you're taking these pills or these foods. Where typically the cosmetic was on the skin. You know? So we're seeing these blurring of lines. Like, for example, we're now seeing a lot of autoimmune and inflammatory stuff that control gut. They all work around the gut.
Of course they do.
In previous years, when I used to turn up with this, I used to like going around talking about a lot of these new amino acids. A lot of new, we spend a bit of time in the sports industry, so I'm always fascinated to know about glutamines, or what's the new forms of arginines, and so we always went through the alpha-ketoglutarate, the fumarates, the nitrates. So we've gone through all of these different forms of amino acids. This year, nothing. I was roaming around. There is no new real innovation in amino acids. There's a few peptides coming out. Peptides are a little bit weird.
Joined amino acids.
Yeah, so they're joining a couple of amino acids together to either have a peptide like a drug-like effect, or just slow down or control the digestive ability of a protein food or something like that. So there's not a huge amount of excitement technology there. Most of the sports industry is going towards botanicals.
Nice.
But the scariest part of this is a lot of these trademark blends. So you see things in the past that were like massive, like previous years, ashwagandha, everything was ashwagandha.
That's
and KSM66 was the famous one because they were saying everyone's fraudulent and these guys are legit. So you got to use their product, and they had some trials. It's tanking. I can see that seems to be coming right off the boil. Main reason why, when I was speaking to a lot of people, is that with a lot of those trademark blends, have a look for this. They'll measure an active ingredient. Like, for example, the active ingredient ashwagandha is a withanolide. They might say that is standardized, or we're going to guarantee that you get 20%, which is always weirdly round numbers like that too, like you're saying before. So we're going to guarantee you get 20% of these withanolides every batch. No more, no less. Nature doesn't work that way.
No.
But that's only 20% of the powder. The other bit of the powder, we want to know what it is. So HPLC testing will do qualitative and quantitative. So it'll say it's there, but it's also there at this amount.
Yes.
TLC testing will just say if it's there or not. Just like, did it turn up? Yes. what they'll often do is they'll do one of the actives they might measure through HPLC so they can say it's 20%. Then what they'll do is they'll say the species, they'll do TLC, and just basically say, see, I told you it's from Withania. But that still leaves 80% of the powder to be variable from batch to batch. So when they make a batch up for their trials, they might have used the good stuff. And then previous batches, they might have had a weak season or a bad season. They might have want to improve their profit margin and turn 20% of that to active and 80% to a filler.
Because just for people who don't know, because you can drop the actives of a herb by simply watering it.
Yeah.
Because it takes up
Swells
water.
up.
It's got less by percentage.
Yeah.
With anisides or whatever you're measuring.
Yep.
So watering it stuffs your plants.
Yeah. So often what a lot of these trademark blends are is they've just got an active which they do standardise and advertise. The rest of the powder they can do what the bloody hell they like, and they refuse to disclose. And I'll go through and say, I want non-GMO, I want this, that, and they go, oh, from batch to batch it may vary, we can't commit to that. We're like, well, that doesn't fit with our due diligence, and if you can't tell us what your product is, then how can I have a marker of standardisation from batch to batch?
Yeah.
And so what's happening is a lot of the industry's going that way. So some of the good companies, though, they're more than happy to disclose. They'll do the whole blend through HPLC testing, so you know exactly what you're dealing with, how much is filler, how much is herb, how much is actives. So that's the way the industry's going. There's a lot more food products, a lot less pills. Everyone's want to move from the aisles in the shopping centres to the outside because that's where fresh food's sold. So they're trying to get into that mindset of being a fresh food. This is what bugs me when these people try to trick into thinking their product is a fresh food or a food when it's genetically modified frankenfood. A lot of stuff is all about brain health. Everyone wants brain health. Everyone wants nootropics. There's a funny thing that
a nootropic is something that boosts your brain,
makes you smarter and that sort of stuff. But instead of just legal highs, like in previous years, it was all about the different forms of caffeine, the different forms of energy tonics, and that sort of stuff. And this one is no, we're specifically talking about cognitive benefit. There's no point just making someone wired but tired. We actually want to make them sharp and focused. So vegan everything was the other one. And the funny thing was too, so with us we make a product called No Way, which is a bovine collagen. Okay, so we were one of the, I think we drove a big expansion into that market into Australia. Before that, people couldn't understand why we're doing it. So the funny thing is, I went around and visited a lot of the other booths that was selling the collagen, just curiosity, and just went through and asked them, so how's your supply? Where's it come from? Man, these guys are like, man, I know a bloke in Brazil that can give me 5 ton at this price if you want it, but you got to sign up for it now. Like, man, seriously, the collagen worldwide has taken off so much that there's a massive shortage of proper collagen.
Wow.
Hence marine collagen. So what's happened now?
Marine collagen.
So marine collagen's the new big thing, apparently, because no one can get bovine collagen. So pig collagen's not so good because there's parts of the world that don't want pig.
Yes.
The beef collagen's excellent, and that's the one that we make most of the good peptides like we use for our no-way stuff. But because there's this massive world shortage now of bovine collagen, especially the clean stuff, and by the way, we test ours for glyphosate residues and find none. I challenge any of the grass-fed, the people that claim about being the clean grass-fed people to do the same thing. It'd be interesting to see. But so this marine collagen's the new thing coming out because the glucosamine industry's tanked. They used to use all the scales and shells and all that sort of stuff to actually make glucosamines. Now they're using it to make marine collagen. So the byproduct of the... So that everyone's looking for collagen. They've moved on to marine collagen. They're just the bones and the scales and that of the fish left over from that fish oil industry and the seafood industry.
Yes, we talked about that.
They're just giving you that. So it's cool, but it's got no peptides. It's just collagen and it's just marine collagen. So
yeah, not so good.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So that's most of the stuff. So coming off the balls, the aminos are tanking. Yeah. There's no real weird compounds coming out for the sports industry. All the new stuff for sports industry, a lot of it is coming out with herbal sort of blends and that sort of stuff because of that whole natural market of that weekend warrior taking over from the hardcore athletes and those people wanting to get food is medicine. So everyone wants their food to be everything now, which I'm so proud of because that was the whole naturopathic thing.
Absolutely.
Probiotics are still booming, but it's the same old shit. They're all just lactobacillus. I've got a few ones that I'm specifically looking for that I've been roaming around. Cannot find them to save my life. So I'm going to keep pushing because I do want to create my own solution for this because what everyone's doing at the moment is just so wrong. There's a lot of confusion out there. And the other thing is there's a lot of people out there selling Saccharomyces nutritional yeast as a probiotic, where it's not.
No.
Because in this nutritional yeast, they kill it.
Yes.
So in the nutritional yeast, they actually heat treat it to sterilize it, stop it from growing, and then measure the nutrients before you take it. So there's Saccharomyces boulardii, Saccharomyces cerevisiae are available as probiotic yeasts, which you can buy. They can be shelf stable. You can take them as probiotic. Just be aware there's a lot of people out there selling nutritional yeast as a probiotic.
Live yeast, yeah.
Which is not the case.
Ask for a CFU, which is a colony forming unit, so it's how many units they'll form.
Yeah.
So if there's
they
not
won't
any of
give
that,
them that.
no.
They won't be able to give you it because it doesn't. And then they'll explain, oh, no, we heat treat it. So that's why you don't get those. Anyway, so the other most exciting things for me was I managed to catch up with a couple of other friends of mine from the industry. And like get to sit down and talk shop.
What's the gossip?
Yeah, I mean, not so much gossip. I like to find out cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like I sit down and have dinner with a guy that invented like creatine as a supplement. And just say, let's just talk, man. Tell me how it happened.
Creatine's a sports supplement.
Yeah, and it all started. He's sitting there going, NFL players were told to eat a lot of steak.
Mm.
They went and analysed the steak, found creatine in it, and were curious to see if creatine in the steak was helping their performance.
Yeah.
And then they just started investigating it.
Well,
it's funny, eh? And then, even the same people... I'm trying to work on a pre-workout and that sort of stuff as well. I get really excited about these pre-workouts and nootropics. And, I mean, we used to have a product called Limitless, which we haven't had for a while.
I love that product.
We discontinued it and I've never really found something that I think is good enough to take its place. And so I've been working pretty hard on that. Still haven't finalised a formula, but, man, we're doing some fun trials.
It's amazing. Like the creatine story with the steak, I mean... we had steak the other night. Next morning, Beck wakes up and said, I worked out really hard at the gym. And I said, it's the steak. Oh.
Yeah.
And so she listens to this. So I'm glad you said it. And I didn't prompt you to say it.
I didn't read. It's not me, mate.
So there you go.
So it doesn't help with the fact that the world's been taken over by vegans, according to this.
Well, they sneak in with the humans, this vegans.
No. Well, the funny thing is how we've been doing these pillars and that. So I've been talking a lot about essential fatty acids, talking a lot about vitamins. And like the vegan diet is becoming a bit more appealing if you do it properly. The way I look at it, in fact, I just like meat. I'd be a bit different if I had to kill my animals to eat them, though. I'd say I'd eat a lot of fish, I reckon.
Yeah,
but
a lot of fish.
Yeah. So anyway, the big point that I wanted to make in this podcast today was just be very skeptical about it. There's a massive push in the industry to get that emotional purchase. They want you to buy it because you're going to give them a well for some starving person in Africa, or they want you to buy it because they're going to fix these soils. Just double check, because there's a massive campaign going where we've got the clean label movement where people are saying like no gluten, no dairy, no nasties, all natural, that sort of stuff. But then there's also an emotional label movement where these people are going, we're going to give a well to someone in a place. So we're going to sell all these plastic bottles and then contribute some money towards cleaning up the environment. Okay. It's just like, well, you're contributing a lot of waste to the environment to be able to generate some money to fix the environment. That's a very strange one.
It's a bit weird, isn't it?
So you see a lot of these emotional people, they talk about banning glyphosate, fixing the soil, blah, 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 but then they're still selling you a product that's contributing to exactly the same problem they're arguing is a problem as against. And it might be to clean their conscience or something because they know they're doing the wrong thing. And I don't know, man, it's just important for people to check, because there was a horrible theme running through this trend of lying to the consumer. That doing market research to say the consumer wants this.
Yes.
They want natural. They want clean. They want to feel good about the environment. They want to know when they're purchasing. Yeah. The more they give, more money they give this company, the better the world's going to be for it. Not the richer one bloke's going to get. They want to know all those things. Yeah. And so a lot of people do this market research and they tell them people what they want to hear, but then sell them something else. The old bait and switch. So just be aware of that. And we're trying through these podcasts, we're trying to educate you what to look for, so you know how not to be tricked and that sort of stuff. And we're also trying to educate you to go back to your other companies that you purchase from and all that sort of stuff. Tell them what you want. Tell them how you want it, and also make sure that they're aware that you know the tricks that they're trying to pull on you.
Yes.
So if you have any questions from us, then we will try to help any way we can. We're in a sticky situation where we never mention other brands, or we do have a code of ethics at our company, First Do No Harm. So that also means not talking about damaging other people or brands or hurting people's feelings and stuff. So, you know, like that's a hard mission to follow.
I think I upset some communists today, though.
Probably.
Right? Yeah.
Probably. That's fine.
That's all right. Well, have we got time? We got time for some FAQs or something?
I think we bloody better. I'll stop waffling now and we'll start doing something else.
Put the glasses on. Here we go. Well, before actually now put...
I can't see the clock, and now I can see the clock again. Thanks, Vanessa.
That's awesome. Well, that's been great. I've enjoyed that. That's been good. That's really interesting, all that stuff.
Thanks, Steve.
Awesome, mate. No, thank you.
No, I mean, it's important to see because, like, most people would either gone to one or the other. So most people, well, I mean, I probably would have too if I knew exactly what was going on, but it's kind of cool that I go in and see. And I don't have egos as such, and I never think that I'm right. I actually probably have low self-esteem, if anything, usually think that I'm probably wrong. Because I'm thinking, what? Hasn't anyone else thinking this same thing? So when it's good to go to those things because I can go in there open-minded and like I listen open-minded and I'm trying to learn. And I spent half this thing trying to learn and I'm just like, oh, quickly, stop trying to learn this because they're going to make you evil. So it's really, not many other people get access to that stuff, especially people like myself that have the motivation to share it with other people at the risk of, I actually probably don't understand the full risks of sharing half the stuff I share. But yeah, we'll see and see. Cool. All right. So if you're watching this video, I've been murdered by those GMO people. All right. Well, have a great day, guys. Thank you for listening. Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Hey, g'day. See, I don't say g'day, g'day. I just realised I said, hey, g'day. Hey, g'day. I don't say g'day, g'day. G'day, g'day. I think I do sometimes. Maybe hey, g'day is abbreviated from g'day, g'day, which was abbreviated from good day, good day. Good day, good day, yes. Hey, g'day. I can't even say it now. You fucking wrecked it for me.